When people think of cities made of gold, they often imagine myths, legends, or fairy tales hidden deep in history. But what if one of those cities truly existed? Not in Europe, not in Asia, but in Africa. Hidden at the edge of the Sahara Desert, there once stood a city so wealthy, so powerful, and so mysterious that travelers crossed deadly deserts just to see it with their own eyes. A city where gold flowed through markets like water. A city filled with scholars, traders, kings, and ancient knowledge. A city whose riches amazed the entire world. This is the story of Timbuktu, the African city made of gold. More than 800 years ago, long before modern banks or airplanes existed, trade routes stretched across the Sahara Desert like giant highways. Caravans carrying salt, ivory, spices, and precious metals traveled for weeks under the burning African sun. And at the center of these routes stood Timbuktu. Located in present-day Mali, Timbuktu began as a small trading camp around the 12th century, but its location made it incredibly important. It connected North Africa to West Africa, becoming one of the richest trade centers on Earth. And the most valuable item traded there was gold. West Africa possessed some of the largest gold reserves in the world. In fact, during the Middle Ages, much of the world's gold came from this region. Gold from African mines traveled through Timbuktu and eventually reached Europe, the Middle East, and Asia. As gold flowed in, wealth exploded. Soon, Timbuktu transformed from a desert settlement into a powerful city of influence. But no story about African gold is complete without one man, a ruler whose wealth became legendary. His name was Mansa Musa. Mansa Musa ruled the Mali Empire during the 14th century, and many historians believe he may have been the richest person who ever lived. Richer than modern billionaires combined, his empire controlled enormous gold mines, and Timbuktu became one of its greatest treasures. In 1324, Mansa Musa made a pilgrimage to Mecca, a journey that would shock the world. He traveled with thousands of soldiers, servants, and camels carrying massive amounts of gold. As he passed through cities in North Africa and the Middle East, he gave away so much gold that local economies were affected for years. People across the world began hearing stories about the wealthy African empire and its golden city. Maps from Europe even showed Mansa Musa holding a giant gold nugget in his hand. Timbuktu had become world famous. But Timbuktu was more than riches. It was something even more powerful: knowledge. At a time when many parts of the world struggled through wars and instability, Timbuktu became one of the greatest centers of education on Earth. The city was home to famous universities and libraries filled with ancient manuscripts. Students traveled from across Africa and the Islamic world to study there. They learned mathematics, astronomy, medicine, law, philosophy, and religion. Some scholars say Timbuktu had over 700,000 manuscripts at its peak. Think about that. In the middle of the Sahara Desert stood a city overflowing not only with gold, but with books and ideas. Knowledge became as valuable as treasure. The famous Sankore University turned Timbuktu into an intellectual capital of Africa. Professors, scientists, and writers gathered there, making the city a symbol of African excellence and civilization. Imagine walking through Timbuktu during its golden age. The streets are crowded with traders from distant lands. You hear different languages from every direction. Camels arrive carrying salt slabs from the Sahara. Boats along the Niger River bring rice and grain. Gold merchants negotiate prices under colorful tents. The smell of spices fills the air. Beautiful fabrics from North Africa hang beside handcrafted jewelry made from pure gold. The city's mosques rise above the streets with stunning mud brick architecture that still survives today. At night, scholars debate science and religion under lantern light, while traders count piles of gold coins. Timbuktu was alive. It was wealthy, powerful, and admired around the world. But greatness does not last forever. In the late 1500s, foreign invasions and political conflicts weakened the Mali Empire. Trade routes began changing as European ships started trading directly along Africa's coasts reducing the importance of the ancient desert caravans that once made Timbuktu rich and powerful. For hundreds of years, merchants crossed the Sahara carrying gold, salt, ivory, cloth, and spices. These dangerous journeys connected entire civilizations. But slowly, fewer traders arrived at the city gates. The once busy markets became quieter, and the sound of caravans crossing the desert slowly faded away. Then came war. In 1591, Moroccan forces invaded Timbuktu using firearms that local armies could not match. Soldiers carrying advanced weapons overwhelmed the defenders of the city. The invasion shocked the empire and changed the future of Timbuktu forever. The city fell. Many scholars fled to nearby regions in fear for their lives. Libraries were destroyed, hidden or looted. Families desperately tried to protect ancient manuscripts that had been collected over generations. Wealth disappeared from the markets, and the Golden City slowly lost its power. Over time, Timbuktu faded into the sands of history. For centuries, some Europeans even doubted Timbuktu existed at all. Stories about the city sounded too incredible to believe. Travelers described streets filled with gold, wealthy kings, giant libraries, and centers of learning in the middle of the Sahara Desert. To many outsiders, it sounded more like fantasy than reality. Yet despite everything, Timbuktu never truly died. The people of the city refused to let their history disappear. Families secretly protected ancient manuscripts for generations. Some hid them in wooden chests, underground rooms, and secret locations beneath their homes. Parents passed the responsibility to their children, who later passed it to future generations. These manuscripts contained priceless information about science, medicine, astronomy, mathematics, religion, poetry, philosophy, and law. Some documents were written more than 600 years ago. They revealed something important to the world. Africa was never a continent without history, education, or civilization. Timbuktu proved the opposite. It showed that African societies built universities, traded internationally, studied science, and produced scholars long before colonial times. The city became proof of Africa's intellectual and cultural greatness. Even today, historians continue discovering ancient texts hidden across the region. Researchers study the manuscripts to understand how advanced Timbuktu truly was. Some writings explain mathematical calculations while others describe the movement of stars and planets. The discoveries continue surprising the world. The real treasure of Timbuktu may not have been gold after all. It may have been knowledge. Gold can disappear, kingdoms can fall, buildings can collapse, but knowledge can survive for generations. Today, Timbuktu still exists in present-day Mali. Though time, conflict, and harsh desert conditions have changed the city, it remains one of Africa's greatest historical symbols. Ancient mosques still stand against the desert wind, reminding the world of a glorious past. Timbuktu reminds us that Africa's history is deeper, richer, and more powerful than many people realize. It was a city of gold, but it was also a city of learning, a city of trade, a city of culture, and a city of human achievement. At its peak, Timbuktu became a meeting point where people from different cultures and regions came together. Traders exchanged goods, scholars shared ideas, and knowledge traveled through the city just as gold once did. And perhaps that is why the legend of Timbuktu still survives hundreds of years later. Because Timbuktu was never just about treasure. It was proof that greatness can rise even from the heart of the desert. Buried beneath the sands of time, the African city made of gold still whispers its story to the world. A story of kings, a story of scholars, a story of power and knowledge. And that story is called Timbuktu.